welcome to the first ever episode of Fireside Chats. Basically, a podcast where me and my man Joker here are going to go over a little bit on the league, talk about the teams, and give you guys some fun information on the league. And without being ado, I'd like to introduce my wonderful, wonderful co-host, Joker's Ransom.
Hello. How's everyone doing tonight? I'm really excited to get this started and we have a big guest already. The man, the myth, the legend, Jay Brain, Jay Platt, Jay Bronze, whatever you want to call him. How are you doing today?
Pretty good.
Well, that is good indeed. So we had a couple things we really wanted to talk about today. We had Avid went around talking to some of the different captains of Firewall Season 5 teams and get some info. And we'll talk about them right now.
Bit of information. Went around sending a form out, just kind of asking a bit on, tell me about your team. We asked a bit about play styles, key players, some experiences, how have you done in other tournaments and things like that. So we've kind of compiled a list, and we want to highlight some of y'all just to talk a bit. So starting first, we have NA Tier 1. A little bit of a smaller version of the league, but I do want to say we are postponing their season for a little bit because we would like to try to add to the teams here to up the competitiveness of it. But we do still have some few wonderful teams that are signed up. So starting first, we have Velocity Titanium. A little tidbit about this team is they are fairly brawl-oriented, but they have experience in Double Shield, especially shifting to the meta where we're seeing a lot more of those poke-based compositions. They obviously have started to adapt to, fit that meta. A few key players that you might know of: KGB Shadow, an great DPS player, mostly on the projectile, with Strange Panda being a support that they decided to highlight, especially on an aggressive Lucio. I love aggressive Lucios. I call them the third DPS. Basically, they function like a tracer. Doing mad things in the backline can sometimes be detrimental.
Definitely. I definitely have to agree with you there. And then they their experience, they did compete in Firewall last season and they did pretty well. A lot of the Velocity teams did really well last season.
Yeah. Extremely strong organization. I can speak from personal experience of getting slapped in the face in finals. They are a powerful organization with all of their teams being extremely competitive. So any of these Velocity teams we're talking about, it would be a shame for you to underestimate them. They will be bringing intensity and competition to the table. Especially what they said here is this team does have a lot of individuals who are really committed to their organization and are really committed to this team. So they're working extremely hard to be competitive. So definitely people to look out for.
And then the other team we got some information on is the Phantom Troop. And they're saying their play style is chaos. So I'm expecting Season 2 Chengdu Hunter vibes from this team. I'm I've played a little bit in Tier 1, and chaos can win you games, and maybe that will be their driving force behind having a really good season this coming up.
Fallen into a little bit of those chaos comps, I think of the Ball Roadhog composition, maybe seeing a little bit of the finals match to the Orisa Ball Bastion Junk, things crazy like that.
Yeah.
But from one of the people they highlighted, they have a co-captain. His name's Nicole on tank. That's kind of an in-game leader that they say is really, really important to their success. Overwatch is an extremely mental game, so having someone that is there to keep your mentality together is almost as important as having someone that can just click heads. Zolp is another great person highlighted. That's a extremely good support player with their duo Spook, who excels exponentially, especially with characters with high DPS such as Zenyatta or Baptiste. Western is another person that they talked about, and I have heard this name before. I can't exactly place it.
Yeah. No,
but
I don't know.
I've seen them around a little bit. Just from knowing that they can make an impact when their name gets around. They had a little bit of a bump in the road. This team has competed in a tournament, but they experienced a little bit of that competitive burnout that we've all felt probably at one point. Life gets a hold of you. But I think here they're willing to commit and they're ready to compete. One thing they said here is that they are really happy with the community that this team has, so they know that like they're not going to get burnt out. They're here to enjoy the activity, be a good part of the community, which is always really exciting to hear.
Competitive Overwatch can be a very task and heavy and very mental heavy thing, and you always need to keep it fun. And then the last thing, and they have another thing is they are without a doubt the least toxic Overwatch team, and that's saying something because a lot of Council Watch is very, very toxic.
Like usually, you know, maybe it's a personal opinion of mine, but the teams that are usually talking the most are usually the ones that either have something to hide or they're a little insecure. Am I right, J-Bat?
Hey, listen. I mean, you're probably right. To be fair, you're probably right.
Get there when we get there. But no, the sportsmanship's good. The sportsmanship's good. But yeah, last team that we do have signed up is Illusion Melodies. And one thing I believe a form of this team competed in Firewall last season, and did pretty good. I don't know the exact record off the top of my head, but I do recognize their captain Wolf. For I believe being a DPS player. I remember they ran a lot of brawl comps and they did find a good amount of success with it. And if they are piggybacking off of the foundation they had already set, it could be very, very dangerous, especially in the tier 1 scene. What do y'all? So with the meta shifting to like double shield and things like that, do you think these tier 1 teams that do run brawl, since it is like it's a less coordinated, more just like brunt mechanical composition, do you think there's like an advantage of teams that shift to the double shield, or do you still think that tier 1 is going to be dominated by these like, brawl oriented teams?
Yeah, it's tier 1 is really just comfort picks. I don't. Then you do have those teams that will run meta, and if they run it well, they'll dominate. But in all, you have to have those comfort. Your players on those comfort heroes, so you don't get those that heated discussion in the comms, like people leaving, whatever. Having them stick with their comfort heroes usually works out better in the long run. That's just my personal opinion.
I agree as well. That's totally true. Tier 1 is just literally play what you're good at and shoot the enemies better than they shoot you.
Yeah,
that's pretty much what it is.
I think it's a good point of like the Phantom Troop, when they do talk about, they play this like chaos style, right? Obviously they're joking around a bit here trying to get a good laugh, but at the same time, like playing a Chengdu style where you may not have like a, you know, an Overwatch League organized composition, but if you're just a freak at the characters you play, it doesn't matter, especially in these lower tiers. You will win games. So I agree with you.
Avid, you've been called out in the chat. Wolf is not a DPS player.
Oh,
my bad.
You've already messed up. You've already pulled a Skip Bayless.
You've already called
5 minutes into the stream.
You've already pulled a J Plat.
J Bronze right on the floor. J Brain moment. All right.
J Brain moment. Well, I think that really does it for tier 1. We don't have more teams. We are postponing the tier 1 season so we can get more teams into that tournament, which, I mean, 3 teams, then you can't really run a tournament. So hopefully we get a couple more into the tier 1 scene so we can get those teams up and running, because I'm excited to see those. Now we can move into NA tier 2, and we can start off with SS Hydras. And their playstyle, brawl heavy team right there. They tend to go head first and with hammer swings, and you know, sometimes it can be a problem, but it works for what their team's playstyle is, and they aim to have fun, enjoy the game, and it gives them the edge when they go head first when their opponents don't expect it at all, and then they can catch them off guard and unprepared.
casted a few of SS Hydra's games in the past, and I have a token word that I say for people that are really hyper aggressive, and I use the word passionate. And if that isn't the word to describe SS Hydras, I do not know what is. I have seen some extremely creative plays come out from Storm and the main tanks that do fit on this roster. But the great news is they highlight here that the reason they can do this is because they have some stellar support players that do back up these aggressive main tanks. Again, teams like this is you may even be a little bit of like lower quality in the DPS pool, which I'm not saying this team is. But if you do have a main tank that is making those huge plays and you're willing to give him resources, it can be extremely hard to keep up, especially in a very brawl dominated tier. Moving on, we have Sway Gaming, which I believe is a new team to Firewall this season. Another really aggressive brawl team. They say here that they do have, some drawbacks with this aggressiveness, which acknowledging that is power in itself, right? Knowing that you need to make some adjustments, but they have a special ability that they say they really know how to control fights. And so that speaks volumes usually of the front line.
Yeah, and then with a very aggressive brawl team, you need a very good main tank, and they do have that in their in Drown, who continues not to upset in any comp on any hero, which is really good. Shows they can play any different type of comp that they really want to, and then their star DPS Unburn, and I think that's what that's what it's called. Who has pushed and challenged to flex to many heroes, and then their amazing flex support Charles. Whether it's on Ana, Zen, or Bap, he continues to surprise them being a rookie to their new team.
This team doesn't have any previous tournament experience. Most of what they're relying on is like they are being extensive in practices and really trying to build that synergy with each other. One thing that they said that they found really successful in scrims and practices is that they know how to adapt quickly and that they have a style of play that they fit. And if you are trying to mirror them on that style, you've already lost. I think that fits a lot of tier 2 teams. Like you develop a certain style and you are really, really good at it, especially if you have some mechanically gifted players. And usually those mirror matchups are the most fun to see, but at the same time, if you put a little bit of pressure on these teams, a lot of them, the ones that can adjust are usually the ones that find a lot of success.
Definitely. And then we're going into Breakout, the captain, Defaulty Boy. Their play style, another aggressive team in Tier 2. This is going to be a really fun Tier 2 this season. But they are also not afraid to play the poke game, which is also pretty important, especially if the other team is running that brawl style composition. You can usually catch them out if you're running a poke style. And then their star player is Milk. They have their own special role. Everyone on their team has their own special role, but he is a phenomenal hit scan player and also a pretty good tank.
Look around, he's pretty active in the community. I've seen a bit. I will be fortunate to be able to see some of their play. But last season was a little bit of a stump for them because they say here that they did have some scheduling issues, so they weren't able to put like those strong rosters out all the time. But it sounds like here they've started to, really put some committed players on the roster and build a strong foundation that they're now going to be able to perform. And if they do have these mechanically gifted players, like they're saying, we are up for a show. And I think you're right, Joker. All these teams are like aggressive brawl comps, like just straight passion.
Yeah.
Seeing who could win the mirror matchup, and that's always exciting to cast and watch, especially.
Definitely. And a bit off topic, but since it's Firewall, my joggers shipped, so make sure you check out the Firewall shop. They got pretty cheap stuff and it looks really good.
Buy J-Brain playing cards now.
Two things. I have the J-Brain mug.
Oh my goodness.
That I am a sole owner of very, very soon. And I also got a polo that has my name on it that I was hoping to wear today, but shipping is great. But yeah, definitely check those out. There's some cool stuff. A lot of the phone cases I was a particularly big fan of too.
And we're trying to get more org-based stuff on there as well. I believe we have Renegades. They have a baby bib on there.
Hey yo, Solar Shockwave rocking that drip, of course.
And other fun stuff. So I don't know who you talked to about getting your team on that, but I'm sure Avid knows.
If you do have some merch that you want to reach out to her, please reach out to myself, Kevin, Cam, any of them on the team. We will gladly help you out if you want to drop some merch, more playing cards, make a whole game out of it. All right, Lighthouse Gaming Defenders. I'm a little bit biased about this one. I am their coach. So I can tell you a bit about this team. So they do play mostly a rush brawl comp, but do have some comfortability with the double shield, especially in the scrims. They have worked a lot, but have been having issues with their roster. They've switched around a lot of players, have had few just internal issues, but I think we have finally reached a solid point where they are stable and willing to compete at a really high level. Some key players that I personally highlight, Drago Immortal is their IGL, their in-game leader, and they are extremely good, especially with their calls. He sets place extremely well. He's Scottish, so Scottish diff. And you have Edgy Boy Uwu, who has the most uncomfortable name I've seen in a long time.
No, thank you.
But is a extremely stellar DPS player. I have seen this man in scrims put his team on his back and perform. So I would not underestimate this team at all. They do have a few experience. They didn't do well in Firewall last season, mostly because the team was made up of a lot of tier 1 players competing in tier 2. So you're going to have a little bit of a mechanical difference there. But back and ready forever. So it should be really, really exciting to see what they do.
Yeah, and then they've got a little bit of experience. They took a second place in a smaller league called SS Overwatch about a year ago. They also played in Firewall last season. They got 7th. Not bad. They made to second rounds of playoffs as well. But like you said, they've got some pretty good players, and so they're going to hope to be back and better than ever. Then finally, you did just talk. They did have a lot of roster changes, but they do have amazing coaches. Not that Avid Ryan guy, but Ice Shadow and Darth with Silent and Captain Slime occasionally helping them out. And then they like to scrim 2 to 3 times a week on VOD, at least one scrim a week. Wow, that's tier 2, and they're doing all of that. That's wow. And they pug with their coaches as well. Wow.
So are you telling me that Atlas 512 was a team, and then they decided, okay, so we won Firewall, now we're just gonna all go coach this team? Is that what I'm hearing now?
That's what it seems like.
It's a pretty good assumption.
Everyone minus Joe. Shadow Sport and TD.
Yeah, always been able to help me out on this on my coaching adventures. So it is pretty exciting. We've let them know we will be very, very sad if they don't do well.
Okay, everyone, you don't have to do well. Just beat Lighthouse Gaming whenever you play them. You don't have to do well the rest of the season. Just beat Lighthouse Gaming.
Lighthouse Gaming, you beat Atlas 512. You heard it here.
Revenge. Even though I don't even play in tier 2, but whatever.
J-Bron, you're close. You can do it.
You're almost there. You just got to get up to...
Technically, I'm eligible to play in T2. I'm like 3150. So technically I could. I just don't feel like it.
Okay, moving on. I believe this is a new team as well. We have Horrorcore Gaming under the leadership of Globe Dragon. This is another brawl team, something we're going to see that's really, really popular in Tier 2. They love this. He made sure to note specifically that this team to them was like a family, and I get that. The team that I played on, we were so extremely close. They hang out a lot, not only in just a competitive setting, but also just in a relaxed, get to know each other, be friends first before you go into this competitive scene of players. And personally, I can say this helps not only with internal issues, but just understanding each other, knowing each other more. Genuinely, just you play better. Helps your mentality a lot. It's great.
Yeah. A couple of their key players. They say they have a lot of their players will work with other players to provide much greater value to team fights. Finn and Unruly on the DPS, who managed to swag out of many heroes. Interesting way to put it. And then Sam and Martian have a type of tank synergy where they don't even need to speak to each other to know what to do and when to do it. And then Zex tends to be their best support, with amazing player saves with almost never being seen. Wow.
And then they actually have some pretty good success, like with their experience. They said that they have been in playoffs in 2 different leagues. They've entered in as first seed, so they do pretty well in the regular season, at least from experience. And they do extremely well in scrims, and they've gotten first and second in most of the tournaments that they have entered. So this is a team that is new to Firewall, but I think could be bringing a little bit of brunt, especially if they already have this like mental foundation built. It takes a while to get there, but once you do, it's all up from there. So definitely a team to watch out for.
Definitely. And then we move into another returning team, Velocity Carbon. Well, I know at least the Velocity organization is back yet again. I don't know if this is a new team or a different. Who knows? I don't. They're another brawl-heavy team, and they have the best healers to keep up their aggressive tanks/players. And their key player they highlighted was, or one of their key players was Block Boy on the main tank, who doesn't take a liking to other Rhines. And then Spirit MP4 is a great DPS player who can play all roles and can change the game at any moment. And that's definitely something you need in the tier 2 scene.
Team is that this team mechanically is incredibly talented. I've sat in on one of their scrims and I'm helping them out a little bit with some coaching things. So this team, like again, as of mechanics and as individual players, are extremely stacked. Feng Dieko was another player that I was really impressed by on the support role. That was extremely good. Orange Mastodon was also pretty good. Has a very limited hero pool, but very talented on the heroes that they do play. This team, as they continue to go throughout the season, are going to become more coordinated and more in a unit. And once they reach that point, like this is literally a team that could compete for a championship now. So I would recommend if you are facing Velocity Carbon, they are a team to be afraid of because of their incredibly talented roster. And due to their experience as well. So Block Boy and Orange Mastodon actually played on the champion tier 1 team that competed in Firewall. And now they're moving up to tier 2 to try to take the crown in the next tier up. So they've been in that situation before.
And that
Would you say they're the team to beat or what?
Here it says that they were the champion tier on the champion tier 1 team.
Yeah, so but this is tier 2 though, Avid.
To the new tier. The thing is, yeah, it's a different level of play. We can understand that, right? But on top of that, knowing how the things go, whether it is on a lower level of play or not, the mentality of competing in championship matches, how they function, how your team's supposed to operate. That's experience that you bring to the table. That is valuable.
Definitely. And then we move into another returning org. Illusion Revolution, and their is their team. Do we not have things about Illusion Revolution, or is it Aqualads?
Yeah.
Okay.
Revolution.
So we don't have.
Awkward.
So we don't have anything about Illusion Revolution, but we can move in to Aqualads.
Let's just assume they play Brawl like all the other T2
Probably.
teams.
They probably play Brawl.
Probably.
But okay, now we have something on this next team, Aqualads. I don't know if this is their first tournament. So look out for them. Hopefully they can make a mark. They are a quick and decisive team that gives them the edge by making making them quick on their toes and bull rushing the enemy team before they can react. So it looks like another aggressive brawl team. But it does allow them to play multiple comps and adapt to the enemies quicker than they can adapt to them, which is interesting because with how they just marketed themselves, I thought they would have been another brawl team.
I think, like we said earlier, is like these teams have a style, but I think they have the ability to like, to be real, double shield's not that hard to play. We could agree on, you know, a lot of the time, like in metas like this, people usually get burned out of the game because like it's not super fast paced. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, but is what is really good right now. And most teams have the ability to pick it up. Orisa Sig, just some high damage DPS, sometimes hit scan, long range hit scan specifically, Bat Mercy, comps like that. We're going to be seeing a lot of them on long range maps, right? Even if a team is a brawl specialist, because again, you can just switch double shield. It isn't that complicated.
Let's go double shield.
It's double. But yeah, so this is their very, very first tournament, and I think it could be interesting. I played in a pug with some of these guys. Was it last night? I think it was last night. And got to see some of the stuff they could do, and I was pretty impressed. So I think it could be a threat. I also enjoy, and I appreciate this, whoever filled out this form. You put on other information, flank bastion, ? Devil emoji. And I am all for it. Please, please, please. If I am casting your game, whip out the flank bastion for me.
Oh no.
Please. Yeah, moving.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, moving on from there. We have Relentless tier 2. We didn't get specific information on them, but aren't they competing in CGL?
I believe they are. Give me like 3 seconds. I can check.
I think they are competing in CGL right now, and they're not doing half bad. They're under the leadership of Dumbo. And I know the Relentless tier 3 team didn't do half bad in Firewall last season. I see Matey in the chat here hyping himself up. But I do know at least like they have a foundation for success. They have people in higher tiers of their organization that are willing to coach people through, give a little bit of talent, trickle down talent to like their tier 2 teams and things like that. So this isn't going to be like a brand new team that's looking for a start. They're going to have some sort of foundation.
So no, they are the tier 3. They have a tier 3 team in CGL with some Firewall people, Animates on that team. So did we talk about their key players, Avid? I don't think we did. Ravager on tank and a DPS flex, and is great at callouts. And It's Nobody is a veteran member and has been with them before they changed to an org. He's a DPS player that becomes in clutch. So that's another good thing to have on your team, a clutch player that can win you games.
This team is Purgatory Cerberus. They played in the Apostle League. I don't know much about it. I think there were about like 300 tournament. It was a smaller tournament, but they did end up winning it. So that speaks for itself. But yeah, interesting that they're in the developmental stage of like we haven't picked a specific style that they're kind of experimenting. But what makes that good, especially if they don't solidify that going into the regular season, is like they are a bit unpredictable. I would love to see a tier 2 team like run out on a bunch of different comps. So then you have the times where like you're prepping for a team, you watch their VOD, they run double shield the entire time. All of a sudden you get hit with like Ball Diva comp time. I don't know. To me, that's a simple pleasure.
Okay. Oh, so I realized that their key players was not for Relentless tier 2. They're for Purgatory. So don't tell. Okay, it's a long day of work. Let me be. And I think that's about that's it. We have for NA tier 2. Thoughts on each team. Thoughts because we have the power ranking section later on, but do we have any clear front runners before we go into that power ranking section?
To me, at least, Velocity Carbon, Horrorcore Game. I'm biased, but Lighthouse Defenders, and Hydras. These are all teams that I have seen something from, and I was impressed by their gameplay. I think of all of those teams, like they just have the experience and the foundation already set to be successful. It leaves some room for interpretation. Obviously, we have some teams that are mechanically gifted that haven't competed in tournaments before or competed specifically in this league, but we have veteran teams in here that are going to be a big threat. So I'd look out for them.
Okay. Sorry, I was reading down the list on NA Tier 3. We don't have the first two. We have Lionstrike and the Pack in Tier 3. But, oh, here comes, you know this team, J-Brain, Fury, who's
are
captained
they?
by Jay Bronze. Who the heck is that? Sounds like a weirdo who has a mustache.
But oh, here, tell us your team.
Me?
Yes, you.
Oh, yes, Fury Tier 3 is a team. You know, really great group of guys. Been building a foundation now for a while, and we finally got it down. We've been scrimming since I want to say like early June, like early summer time, right? And I think now is like the time that I genuinely am confident that we have a championship like in our um in our locker, right? We got some really good players. GTA is harassing me in DMs, telling me to mention that him as a star player on Fury, so I'm gonna do that. GTA, you're kind of bad, but at the same time, we love you. So, yeah, GTA is a freak on the hit scan. Um, Twixley as well. Again, insane DPS, really good flex player. You know him, Avid. I think he does stuff in the Lighthouse org, right?
Me clicks on heads. He's
Oh
scary.
yeah, he's quite good. Um, we have Weary Bunny and myself on tank. I put myself in the star players because the team is kind of built around me. So
Of
the way we
course.
play is based on my play style, and that is how we win games. And so we got
Definitely
the
not
secret.
Weary Bunny being a very great main tank.
No, Weary Bunny's really bad. Weary Bunny kind of smells.
Of course.
No. Honestly, crazy roster this season. Really excited to play with it. We also got the secret gem on the bench, Sombra Specialist Motivation EXE. So yeah, it's gonna be so much fun. Not to mention really good support players, really good at keeping tanks up. It's gonna be so much fun. I can't wait for you guys to see it.
Too, especially like competing against you, obviously, in last season, and seeing
We don't
some of
talk
the stuff
about
you do
that.
with the roster.
We don't talk about. We don't talk about last season. We don't talk about last season.
I wasn't gonna say anything. You said it first, but
Oh sure.
Yeah. But yeah, it should be really, really cool. One thing I do want to note is we do have the pack now going into tier 3. I wouldn't be surprised if they took some of the people on their very, very strong tier 2 roster that they had.
Goodness,
Zoids,
baby.
and
The
up.
the menace, like the 12-year-old menace, so good at DPS.
That's also a team that could be exciting because they have some pretty solid tournament experience. And even moving to a higher level of play, I think tier 2 to tier 3 is a pretty big jump. But it is a jump that has to be made. I still think that this team does have a lot of potential, especially with a pretty good background. I don't know exactly who's competing with it, but I know Corrupt will be there. Mochi Bees is a support player that I've had some experience playing with, and he's a very vocal shot caller and good in-game leader. So that would be a very, very interesting team to go up against because they are solid.
And then moving on to Velocity Nitro. They are a dive specialist team. They do have Madeira, who, oh my goodness, was great on the Doomfist last season. I believe they were in the finals against you, Avid. Yeah, he was just incredible. And then Panda is secret weapon on DPS. And then they're currently undefeated in CGL, which is a very big thing. I don't know what division they are in because that could change a lot of the. Because I haven't really looked at the divisions, but still, being undefeated in CGL is a big thing.
And I can tell you that playing against this team is, again, it's no easy task. They slapped us in the face at the beginning of the finals, and Madeira itself is a incredible player. Someone that can change the pace of games instantly. And if they have found another DPS player that can match the talent of Madeira, off of that alone, it's terrifying.
Yeah, that
I would also tell you, like, yes, we are highlighting the DPS players here, but if they are pulling some of the people from that tier 3 roster that they had in finals, which I believe they are, like, tanks were also freaks of nature. Kariko was a main heals that played for that team. That was also a freak of nature. That whole roster was incredibly stacked. So if they keep any of those players, which I believe Bogged is now playing in the tier 4 scene for Velocity Hydro, but any of them on the roster already upgrades this team to such a high level, even if they're not just one.
I don't think Kariko. I don't think any of the support players are actually eligible to play T3 this season. I think they're both 3,900.
Team.
Unfortunate. Then going in, we have 4 teams we don't have any info about, but there are Lighthouse Assassins, Renegades, Firestone, or 3 teams that we don't have info on.
We on Assassins. We got that in late last night.
No, I don't have that.
Yeah, good.
I could say a bit about Renegades because I do know a bit about that team.
All right.
First experience with Lighthouse Assassins. They are very new. They have a very new roster. They're still trying to figure things out. I will say they have some pretty good talent. They signed Exertions and Athena. And they're homies from the tier 3 scene that played for Lords Crusaders last season. And they are both incredibly talented. Exertions they are expensive. But Exertions is incredibly good on the hit scan DPS. And Athena, I believe, is a main support player. They entered in as a duo, so they have a lot of synergy. Sean is a really good tank player. That is very, very much like their in-game leader. I believe helps a lot with like their captaining stuff with Horizon. He's also a player that I would see to make some plays and especially perform consistently, which in tiers like this, consistent performance can sometimes outweigh those big playmakers.
So Jay Bronze, you had some things to say about Renegades?
Yeah, Renegades is actually like a quite like well-known team, right? Like they're one of the best teams in CGL this season, probably top 2, top 3. They have a really good DPS line, popular players there, Side Effects, who's probably got the best aim in T3, period. He's recently climbed to 4,000 like this current competitive season.
Oh wow.
So, he's got a lot to show.
I remember when he was tier 2.
He was tier 2 in, I think, what season was it?
It was last BA season, I think.
Yeah, he's a T2. He's a T2 move up, and he's got the best aim in the tier. And then you have another, again, popular DPS player, Sky, really good flex DPS, can also flex to pretty much any role in the game. And they have really good active coaching, a good support line, strong tank line. Everything is really there for them. So they should be really good this season.
And now we're moving into Munching Carrot's stuff that he put in for this for Ignition. They don't know what their play style is. Their best G3 is very good at Reinhardt, but unfortunately, they do not let him play Reinhardt. KGB is the best player on the team when he eats his applesauce, but unfortunately, he's allergic to apples.
What?
And they're playing in CGL right now. It is going. They are one of the top teams in CGL at this time. And their other info, they have Toby that leads their VOD reviews, and they pay him in bananas.
What? Interesting.
Okay. Plays. Also under Munching, 2 words: we ball. So maybe a little bit of ball comps. Another thing, key players, Seabass, but only when he plays Monkey. We do not let him play Monkey. I for filling this out and giving me a little bit of laughs late at night while I was putting this together. Also during the experience, all he says is, "Do not know." they asked me if I was asking them 20 questions, like the elementary school game. But there's that.
Oh my goodness. Well, so that wraps up NA Tier 3. And even though they did just give us that entire gaggle of laughs or giggles, I do still think Ignition Ruby's a very solid team that can definitely win Tier 3 here. Like I said, I think they're still undefeated right now in CGL. And that's a big team to look out for.
A lot of the people that stand out to me, I think Pat could be interesting. I will put Fury on the list, Laz. Fury's on the list of teams to look out for because you do have a lot of talented players on that roster. City Nitro, hello. We'd be crazy to not put them at least in like the top tier of teams. Making it to finals last season and building off of that with some of those returning players. Renegades for certain. We know they're a very powerful team that's doing very well in CGL, so they're going to find success here. And I agree with you, Joker, that both Ignition teams really are a threat to the Tier 3 seed.
I'm surprised Stiggy wasn't mentioned. That kid is a freak.
Stiggy Ball!
He is and ball, but he's been playing Diva for the most part this season. But yeah, kid's a freak.
It was a meme. I think multi-tier 7. It's just Stiggy on ball was a meme in the Ignition server. Now we head into NA Tier 4, starting off with Velocity Hydro, and starting this off, Mudching. So he just questioned you, J Platt.
Oh yeah, he questioned me.
Yeah,
what did he say?
because you called Stiggy good.
Oh wow. Yeah, you're right. Stiggy's really bad, horrible player.
So we have Velocity Hydro, hyper aggressive brawl, which is really interesting. Normally when you get up into these tiers, you have to play meta to win. So it's great to see that they stay on their stay to their guns. And then they have Shy Guy and Tyranahex on as the DPS duo, and Blitz on the main tank, his unmatched passion, and they're currently undefeated in CGL right now.
Hacks is scary. Played against him a little bit when he played for Tier 3 Sega Korean, where he was incredibly good there. So I would not be surprised that he is a crazy DPS, especially in the Tier 4 scene, because he is gifted. Moving down to a team that I think we can all agree on is going to really set a precedent in Tier 4. Deep Dive.
Puppy laugh.
Deep Dive is a team that is a little intimidating. Their playstyle is extremely flexible. They're especially good at rush. They even said here that like if you're willing to rush against them in a mirror matchup, you've already made a huge mistake because they win their rush one-on-ones. Some of their key players, Clout Streaks, quote, the best hit scan to ever touch Tier 4, insanely flexible, and can flip a switch to deadlifts games. Quest, an in-game leader, makes calls for most of the team, and important IGL is good. Their main hero being D.Va, but they can play most off-tanks to a pretty high level. But to be fair, D.Va's a character right now that especially, like other than in double shield comps, which even then you can make it work within Orisa D.Va, it's a must pick almost, especially at higher tiers. And then a big name, Water. It's probably the craziest Baptiste I've seen in my entire life.
Yeah. I've seen that man do so many things on the Baptiste role. I've casted so many of his games. He's just incredible. I feel like even though it's not a deadlift because it's not you kill whatever the amount of people or but he just does so much. He can win games on his own with the amount of healing and DPS that he does by himself. And they said that right there, they can diff every other flex support, especially in Bat mirrors. And then currently, most of the team is staying the same from CGL, which is a big thing, where they're 4-0, beating the other two teams in our bracket 3-0 and 3-2. And they're confident about themselves. They said they're going to win Tier 4 CGL.
Is going to talk volumes like that. I think Deep Dive probably has the most ground to speak on. Another thing about Water is Shadow Spartan is one of the people that I played with on the off-tank role for Atlas 512 in the Tier 3 scene. We had a support player, his name was Silent, who him and I kind of agreed like that is the best Ana player and second best BAT player I've ever seen touch Overwatch. And second to only Water on BAP from what we've seen. So the man is impressive. Moving down, we have Valhalla and Paulus Harmonious that wasn't able to get much information on us, unfortunately. But I do know they're both fairly new to the league. I have not seen these teams in Firewall last season, but they are pushing up the numbers a bit. But moving on to two other teams here. So what we did is we had EU Tier 4, but we ended up having two teams. So what we have done is we have decided to combine those brackets. So starting first off, we have Error 44 Phoenix under the leadership of Dazed Empress. They're a fairly new team. Getting used to some play styles, still in that building phase. But one thing to look out for is that they do have a Doom 1 trick. Oh, Doom 1 tricks, the trauma. Coming down, that's definitely a style that they're going to want to play around. Some experience that they're highlighting is that they're currently competing with some of these members in CGL. So they are gaining some experience with that. And on top of that, they have some connections with Coach Kobe, who's actually going to help them out with some VOD reviews. So they have that resource behind them.
Yeah, Kobe is a incredible coach. He does a lot of work with Tier 2 teams, not Tier 2 Xbox teams, Tier 2 teams and contenders, and Tier 3 Open Division teams as well. So that's a really good person to have under in your corner there. And then I don't want to say this team's name, but I will because it is their team name. It's Sexual Ed Tier 4. And they adapt really quickly to mistakes midway and always prep for teams when they can get the chance. And their key players are Noah on the hit scan DPS role. And when it comes to heroes, if they need a one-shot play or something to turn momentum. And another one on the team is definitely Elbow. Their flex DPS and their main tracer player. The dude cleans up fights like nothing and has literally won us fights they should have lost. And this is their first league for the team. So they've got nothing to lose. They've got nothing to lose really. And
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say they're on. You can say the other info, Avid.
I can already tell this team's got a little bit of personality to it because on their other info, they said, let's just say we know how to show a team a thing or two about getting sex edited. So playing to the lingo there, I appreciate it. So the definitely to look out for could be interesting. So yeah, that kind of clears up our NA division for the tournament. I'm really, really excited to see. We have a lot of returners coming back and a lot of new teams as well that are really starting to spice things up. One thing that I do find interesting is obviously, we've been around for a good amount. We've gotten to see some of the teams are in past seasons. So we can, make predictions about saying like, oh yeah, this team that did well these last two seasons obviously is going to do well again. But then you have like this 50% collection really of these new teams that haven't touched Firewall before or other tournaments even that could really spice things up and make the season really exciting.
Yeah. Now we can move on to our EU divisions. EU Tier 2, starting off with Apricot Assassins. Love the name, love the alliteration. Overall, a defensive play style causes it, because it makes it easier to punish mistakes made by the other teams. Reminds me of old NYXL Season 1, Season 2 vibes, how they would always play that defensive style of game and then punish you. That's how they won their games. And hopefully if they can do that they're gonna get some more. They're gonna get go pretty far. And their key players is their captain, Charles. They never intended on actually playing for the team, but their play style and main tank really helps get W's for the team, and also the flex support who makes calls as much as they do, very vocal and supportive when something doesn't go to plan. And they're currently participating in OCC where they are first place.
Interesting. You don't hear a lot of tier twos teams at all talk about this idea of like I call it it's a very basic term, but it's essentially the teams that like they may not have like these exponential strengths for themselves or this aggressive play, but especially in lower tiers, if you just allow teams to kind of come into you and mistakes on their own, and then you're just good at punishing them and analyzing those situations, it's an extremely successful strategy, especially at tiers like tier 1 and tier 2, where there are going to be noticeable mistakes that you see. I think that could be a really interesting philosophy to have, and it could prove really successful. We weren't able to get much information, unfortunately, on 20% interest, Royalty, and Infernal Titans. I do know a bit. Infernal Titans does have Backline Frog as their captain. I played with him a bit. I believe Frontline name. They're pretty solid. A little bit of a Reddit Lucio, as you can imagine, by the Backline Frog title, but very impactful. So at least on that point, I know that they do have somewhat of a solid foundation. But moving on to one team to get a bit of info from is Galactic Raptors. They probably play a rush comp. And one thing I found interesting is that they rarely swap off Ryan, Zarya, Anna. I'm not sure if this is an edge or a hindrance, but it means we have a lot of practice on this particular comp. That is an interesting look on the whole Brawl composition. Atlas ran this composition a few times, really only on KR, just because a Nano Reinhardt can, bulldoze an team if you got a Lucio speed boost behind him. So maybe playing with that kind of aggressive style there could find a lot of success. But hard sticking to it on some maps. I may agree with them that it might be a hindrance.
I'm just already thinking, maybe even because if the teams already know this, specifically for like Hanamura second, it's going to be really difficult to push, because normally if you're that Brawl type of team, you want to take that high ground on the right side. If you already know that, you're probably already just going to throw a junk into the mix and just spam down that tight corridor. So it's going to be really interesting to see if they can keep the win with not swapping off of Ryan Zarya, and if they're comfortable if they have to switch off of it. That's going to be that's definitely something to look forward to, or look to see how this team can adapt if they need to. And then their best and highest rated player is Neffy, who's an exceptional hit scan and Hanzo player. This is their first tournament, but their coach has won CGL Tier 6 and has put countless hours into this team, transforming our team from Tier 1 to Tier 2, and now they're prepared for anything. And I really wonder who their coach is. If it's Joe Mac, this team's a menace. This team's gonna be a menace if it's Joe Mac, because he's just a mastermind behind those amazing EU Tier 6 teams. So if we have a person from Galactic Raptors in the chat, or if we can figure that out, that'd be really a big thing to know. Because if it is, that's their. I already say they're winning the EU Tier 3 scene, or EU Tier 2 scene.
This is their first tournament. If they have already taken from like a Tier 1 to Tier 2, and they do have like a Tier X coach who is putting commitment and time to them, no matter what, they're going to be a threat. I 100% agree with you there. Next, we have Conquerors under the leadership of Kieran. This team is also pretty new. A lot of the Lighthouse teams are trying to find their grip a little bit. they're still developing a play style, but they are putting in a lot of work in. Some key players, you have Sadlers, which is an extremely good DPS player who's a brand new signing to the team. So they are still trying to fit comps that still play around him. And they also have a very, very great tank player who does most of the organizing and planning for his team and is a very good IGL. So that's good. A lot of main tank players. I'm curious if y'all have an opinion on this. Have y'all noticed that main tank players are usually the people, and especially in like these lower tiers, that like are IGLs and team managers and team captains?
Yeah. I was forced to be, and I
Ishan?
don't like talking.
Do you think there's like some weird correlation that goes on
Well,
there?
I
Or?
feel like a lot of people believe that the main tank should be that IGL just because they are that first person in, telling, and you need to follow them and whatnot. But I don't know. I always think that it doesn't have to be the main tank. I think the main support or off tank can also be a really good IGL, specifically since the main support usually is tracking ultimates, or the off tank can just, they don't have to focus on, they have to focus on the main tank and everyone else because they're usually peeling for people. And that's why I think those two are the better IGLs, but people don't listen to me, so I'm usually stuck shot calling and being IGL.
We cannot hear you, Laz. Struggling a bit to pick you up.
Uh-oh. That's not good.
Yeah, not too big. It's all good. The one thing I said earlier to some of my Lighthouse peeps to describe like the three roles, like the best tank players always are a little bit depressed. The best DPS players always have a little bit of an ego, and the best support players usually have a little bit of mom energy in them. And I stand by that wholeheartedly in saying that. So maybe that's it. That tank players just have a little bit of that ability. I also see a lot of support players end up being captains, which makes sense. Their job is to take care of their team.
Yep.
As of EU Tier 2, that's what we have to look at so far. So moving on to, I believe, our last tier to talk about is EU Tier 3, starting out with Geo under the leadership of Free Baza. I don't know too much about this team when it comes to like the actual roster. I do know that this organization has been together for a while and that they have spent a lot of time team building. So I know it's not a completely just like bare bone organization or team. I know that they have a little bit of practice behind them. So they have at least some sort of foundation to work off of.
That's always important. Then we don't have any. Did you talk about Lighthouse Renegades? Because I don't have anything. Do you?
Renegades is under the leadership of TMM Jelly. Also, like the other Lighthouse teams, they are still a new team that hasn't been together for very long. They're trying to solidify their play style. They have T-Gax on support, who's also a tank player for the team if need be, and has proven to be extremely consistent. Sleepy Ally holds a lot of leadership on the team and is a pretty good overall flex player. Benny has extremely good mechanical skill, especially on that DPS role, and Harabob an extremely good DPS as well, especially on Pharaoh with a specialist in hit scans outside of the Flying Moth. They don't have previous tournament experience since it is a new team, but they are slowly working on building up, especially with some strong coaches, some high masters, low GM coaches like Mary and Monkey. So.
Then we don't. Then Infernal Dragons. They managed to run a pretty decent dive, but what helps them the most is they know how each other play. They say it doesn't sound like much, but knowing how your team plays is a huge thing, especially in Tier 3 and under. And then key players are Sky Commander is the core of their team. He's the one that puts them into their place. He got them doing scrims more and doing fallouts more consistently and just being a better team in general. He's also a very good off tank. And they played in the past 2 seasons of Firewall, getting to the finals and then losing by 1 game in season 3, and then they lost in semis. But they weren't focused on winning for any prize. It's all for the fun of it.
Great. Coming in, I am like, this is the first team that we've seen that's like, hey, we run dive. Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. That's fun. I love Monkey.
Yeah. I actually love dive teams. Only because like dive is an accomplishment in itself if you run it right on a fundamental level, right? It's difficult to coordinate. You have to, again, like you said earlier, you have to know how your team plays. And if they do know that, like, that is a threat. Even if they do end up changing their style to better fit the meta, just having dive in your arsenal, like on certain maps like Nimbani, Second Point Eichenwald, like things like that will give you an advantage because other teams aren't going to be able to run it. Or if they can't run it, they usually don't understand that composition as well if it's being ran against them. So that does give them a pretty huge advantage if their best style is dive.
Yeah. And then the final team for EU Tier 3 is Illusion Dynamic. Their play style revolves around adaptability. They practice a variety of team comps and keep a next man up mentality. Every player on their roster is good enough to be a star, and make sure all of them know that. So that's a big thing, because a lot of teams will just have those starting 6 and maybe a 7th if they need someone to come in. That's a really good mentality to keep about your team, that no one's safe to keep their starting spot. Anyone can play. And that's really good to note. They always know that they're never out of a game. They showed it last season, being down 0-2 map-wise in the semifinals and still came back to win. And this season, they're out for that title. Their main stars of the team have to be in the tank and DPS line. Thunder God and Leo are both huge playmakers at the DPS and main tank positions, and they have such good coordination, even though they're competing with each other all the time. And that's another big thing. Competing inside your team. Always that I always suggest doing that. Give your DPS players a goal. If you're playing against a really good a bad team and you're really good, have them hit a goal. Like, oh, you want to have above 40% weapon accuracy for this game, or whatever. Something like that. You always want to have a competition to get them to do their best. And then Loxa is also a recent pickup, who is a key DPS flex with a lot of potential, and their captain Magnum manages to dominate even if he is on an NA player on ping. Wow, that's an NA player playing EU. That's interesting. It's usually the other way around. I don't know. And then the team was founded back in December of last year by Maxim, who is still the captain today, though the roster has made significant changes since last season, but that is not going to stop them. They have more resources to coaching and a very rigorous scrim schedule, and they're hungrier than they've ever been, and that's not all that needs to be said, really.
I do find it interesting that they highlighted this competition aspect. You hit on it really well. But I do think that is really important. I agree with you that, like, building off of each other and continuing to better, as either whether it's a competitive aspect or it just as, a friendly competition that isn't taken that seriously, to whatever dynamic it may be, it does push people to the next level of competition. So now going on to a really, really exciting part of this segment. We will now be moving on to our power ranking predictions
Can you guys hear me now?
of the season.
Yes.
We can hear you. Yes.
Hey, there we go. I had to put this on. But it's okay because you guys can hear me. So
Beautiful.
it works out. I look ridiculous.
Where's the wait? No, you're not the one that has the Diva headset. That's Jace.
The Diva headset?
Yeah, he has, Jace has the Diva headset.
Nice.
All right.
Even he's got the headset on. He's finally ready to participate.
Oh yes, I'm finally gaming. I'm finally gaming. This is what I look like. This is what I look like when I play Sigma.
behind the mask, if you will. All right, so now we got some preseason predictions. So how we're gonna do this, especially since we do lack a little bit of information just from a little bit of miscommunication with captains. If there is a tier with more than 5 people, let's give top 5. From just background knowledge that you have, knowledge of what we have on the teams. Let's just go down the list. All right, in a tier 1, we only do have 3 teams, but of the ones that we do know, agree or disagree, immediate hot take, okay? Not really hot take, but Velocity Titanium, Illusion Ion Melodies, the Phantom Troop. 1, 2, 3.
What was it again? I'm gonna write it down so we can somewhat have a.
Yeah. So, guys, I see
They all
Velocity
play brawl
Titanium.
comps. How?
Yeah.
How am I don't. They
Not
all
fair.
play the same. They all
No.
play the same thing.
Titanium, I say, would probably be the first in their power ranking so far. Second, I'm probably going to give it to Illusion Ion Melodies. Third, I'm going to give it to Phantom Troop. The only reason is because Velocity Titanium, not only do they have an extremely strong org behind them with extremely strong leadership, with very good and consistent coaches. I believe Bogged Fern is actually coaching this tier 1 team.
Oh my goodness, Bob's just a great coach.
He really is.
Bogged is the definition of a Chad. That man is a Chad.
Yeah. Because of that, like, they have the resources alone to succeed to be a championship. But on top of that, I know KGB Shadow can do amazing things. I've seen his gameplay. Chepo, I've seen a little bit as well, just in some scrims and pugs. And they find success in that. So from what I know, this is a pretty solid team for first place contention. The reason I pick Illusion Ion Melodies as second instead of Phantom Troop is because with Illusion, I competed in Firewall last season, and they did find a little bit of success. So they are working off of a foundation. They have a goal to reach for. There's something there. And they competed and were fairly successful. They have a defined play style in comparison to Phantom Troop, who's more on the end of, like, they're still trying to solidify a competitive mentality within their team. They competed in a tournament and experienced some competitive burnout, which is something that can happen again, especially since this is happening, in the midst of school. People who started college, high school, middle school, whatever it may be. Life obviously comes first here, but the reality is the teams that are going to be putting the more time and effort into these competitions are usually going to be the ones that find the most success. And especially going against teams that do have these defined styles, even if we get to see some, Chengdu Hunters level of creativity from the Phantom Troop, I still don't think they've been able to display to us just yet if they're going to be able to compete with these already established teams.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
All right. We move on to a large section of Firewall's competition, which is NA Tier 2. Does anyone want to start us off?
I can start us off. Let me see here. Wait, let me get the list of the teams. Let's see here. So I'm gonna start off with my number 1 team is gonna have to be. Oh my goodness, there's so many. Let me look at these. You know what, Avid, because you're here, I'll say Lighthouse Gaming is my number 1. Then we'll go with.
Look at that face. You gave him too much.
I know I did.
Look at that. Look at that smug.
Psst, J-Pat, I only said it because he's here.
Oh, okay.
I'm not put them first, but I appreciate it.
Oh, really? I see.
No.
I don't really.
Finish where you're.
We'll go Velocity Carbon second. Illusion Revolution third. We'll have SS Hydra's fourth, and then I don't really know. Actually, I'll say Horror Gaming with fifth. Oh.
With at least like your top 5, like the teams that are in there. Because what we got.
I didn't really know. I knew the teams that I wanted. I just didn't know what order I wanted to put them in.
Well, we can kind of work there. So what we got, SS Hydras, we have Lighthouse Gaming Defenders, Horrorcore, Velocity Carbon X, Illusion Revolution, are our top 5 right now. So working off that, so here's what I would personally put. I would actually put Velocity Carbon at number one. And here's why. So although I'm putting a lot of effort into the Defenders team and they do have a lot of talented players, from what I have seen, Velocity Carbon mechanically outperforms Defenders. And it's much, much more difficult to teach a player how to be mechanically good at the game and understand the game at a very micro level than it is to just teach a team how to play around each other and play together, at least from my experience, right? Like it takes a lot of time to improve your aim, or it takes a lot of time for you to understand a single character at a really high level.
Yeah.
It doesn't take too long how to understand what you're supposed to do to run a dive comp, or what you're supposed to do to run double shield, or rotations and things like that. So because of that reason, although at the initial starting point, I may put Defenders over them because they do coordinate really well, I think the pure mechanical skill that Velocity Carbon has on their roster in comparison to the other teams in Tier 2 just separate them.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so I would put Velocity Carbon on 1. I put Lighthouse Gaming Defenders on 2. 3, I may have to put Hydras. I'm a little hesitant to put Hydras for the sheer fact that their style is a little bit risky. But at the same time, with some of the teams, even like the higher level teams that they played against last season, the teams that are really solid and play like calm play styles, that isn't the right word, but like very structured ways of play, usually struggle to play against the teams that get a little creative and aggressive. And SS Hydras is that. Again, was he Storm? Yeah, Storm's passionate, and that passion separates them. So I would put them in 3 for that sheer fact alone, and that they know how to play around this aggressive style. 4, the other ones we got were Horrorcore and Illusion Rev, right?
Yeah.
I would probably put Horrorcore 4th and Illusion Rev 5th. Illusion was a pretty solid team last year, but what it sounds like from Horrorcore Gaming, they have a really solid roster and a deep understanding of how they play. They know how to play, a really solid brawl comp, which is really important in a Tier 2 division dominated by that brawl.
Mm-hmm.
And they've played in 2 different leagues and have found success in them. Like this says here that they went into their playoffs as first seed, and they have taken first and seconds in these 2 different leagues that they competed in. So we know they have the ability to compete. So there's no reason for us not to at least include them in our top 5, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Impressive.
Yeah. Jay Plant, you have any qualms with that? Any problems?
No, not really.
All right, we can move on to Tier 3 then.
All right, Laz, give
Here
it to
we
me.
go.
Give it to me, Laz.
Here we go.
I've been
Okay.
waiting for this.
So I'm gonna do a top 5 then for T3. Number 1, I would say Renegade. Just kidding. Lol. Suck my balls. Fury Org. Fury T3. Fury on top, baby. Number 2, Renegades. Number 3, either Ignition Ruby or Velocity Nitro X. Number 3 and number 4, it's like I'm not really sure. Like they're kind of in the same spot, really. And then close to that is Ignition Blaze. And then for number 5, I think I don't really know, to be honest with you.
What about Pack?
I was gonna say Pack.
Well,
Yeah, because they have a lot of strong players. What was that?
You said Ignition, the other Ignition team, what is it called? Ignition Blaze.
You have Ignition Ruby
Blaze.
and Ignition Blaze.
Yeah, there's 2 teams.
Yeah, I know.
So you're not going to have Ignition Blaze top 5.
Maths. Okay. I screwed up the maths. It's okay.
So Ignition Blaze top 5.
Yes,
I agree
Ignition Blaze top 5.
I agree with those I agree with the top 5 teams. I don't agree with the order. But
So what we
where
got?
Where would you put the order then?
so right now I have to with your team though too, with your players. I do actually I like that. I think Ignition Ruby also has I feel like those top 3 teams are really just interchangeable. Fury, Renegades, and Ignition Ruby. And but with the I'd have to see more of their rosters, but I do actually like this. Maybe Renegades first, but other than
Wrong.
that, I like that. I do actually like it.
Okay. So I do agree with the top 5, I think, right? So right now we have Fury, Velocity Nitro, Renegades, and both Ignition teams.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
100%.
So I 100% agree with that. I think personally, I think the top 3 is right on the money, but I would put, I'm sorry, Laz, I would put Renegades first. Second, I would put Velocity Nitro, and third, I would be Fury. The reason why I would put Renegades just because Renegades is a super crazy talented team. We've seen them perform in CGL. They're going to perform in this league. They have a set foundation. I believe they're taking the team that they ran in CGL and literally taking it over here to Firewall. So it is scary. I just put them first purely off that. Second, I have to give respect where respect is due to Velocity Nitro. They scared the crap out of my team in Tier 3 finals. And not only that, they've only built upon an already extremely good foundation with Madeira coming back, with Panda being another really, really good DPS. That roster right there with already the foundation, like with Jay still being on the team and things like that, they're literally just rinsing and repeating, but with better mechanical players than what they already had, which is crazy. And I do think Fury has potential, right, to like compete, and I think Fury also has the ability to be like a finals team. The only reason I don't personally put you there is because like it's just not in a set foundation like the rest of them. Like you do have a really good roster and you've built them really well with a lot of new players. It just takes time. Like put that in a foundation, develop that play style in a concrete way, and work with that.
So how are we gonna do this? Because we have a lot of different opinions.
I can accept that Renegades and Fury are in the top 2, but
Oh.
I personally would put Renegades in first.
Okay, J Brain, are you fine with that?
I mean, no.
But
But, like-
you're gonna have to compromise here.
Since I'm trying out for Renegades and I really want to get on that team for BA, then sure, yes. You know, I'm gonna kiss some ass today. Okay, it's fine.
All right, so we can agree Renegades first. We'll put Fury on second. Third is Velocity Nitro for our top 3, and then slowly followed by both, very, very closely followed by both Ignition teams.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, give it a different day of the week, like one of these Ignition teams could creep into that third slot.
Yeah, they're doing incredible, and both of them are doing incredible during CGL. So I would expect if they're keeping that same roster, which the tank line seems to be the same for Ruby. That is a big thing. If they keep Wux as well on Ruby, I think that's going to be a really good team. But we'll have to see when we see.
Ruby's strong. Ruby's strong. Both Ignition teams are very strong.
I am so excited for Tier 3 this season. Not only because I competed it last year, but there are so many solid teams. Like usually you find some sort of division, right? Like you have the teams that are below that 50% and above. But again, like all 5 of these teams that we have named, any day of the week could be any of the teams.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's going to be super, super exciting competition.
I definitely agree with that.
Okay. So now moving along, we got NA Tier 4. This one we don't have a crazy amount of information on either. Our options: Velocity Hydro, Deep Dive, Valhalla, Pulse Harmonis, and Error 44. What do you think, Joker?
Well, and well, you also have did we say sex ed too?
And sex ed. Yes, almost forgot. My bad.
You
My
can't forget about sex
Can't
ed.
bad.
Really important. So I think we're all in a consensus that Deep Dive's number 1.
Yep.
So I'll put that in already. Then we get into that unknown territory for a lot of these teams because we don't have anything really on. We don't have anything on or two of the teams, which is a big thing. I do we have the rosters like set already on the Firewall website?
Yeah, rosters are public.
Okay, let me look at the roster and then I'll get back to you on my thoughts on it.
Hydra second.
Yeah.
I think we can establish that now.
Yeah.
Red Axe, freak. Bogged Fern, freak. Gotta support the homie.
Yeah. Let's see here. If I can find where the rosters are, I might be blind. But
You're wearing glasses.
yeah,
Fix the problem.
it should fix the problem. But why can't I find this? League standings. Maybe that's where I need to go. Let's see here. What's Polos the Polos team? Hermanos. Where's the roster? Why don't I see the roster?
It's gone.
It's gone. I don't actually see it. Wait, maybe the second page. No.
Need like a Joe Rogan situation, like Jamie, pull that video up.
I don't see it. So I can't really give. So I'll just say we'll say Sex Ed 3, Air 4044 in either Valhalla or Polos Hermanos at 5. I can't really. I can't if I don't know what the team's rocking with, I can't really
Right.
give an accurate representation of what they're gonna be doing.
I agree. Deep dive. I think Deep Dive and Velocity Hydro are like 90% sure that's your finals. Unless some crazy stuff happens, both these teams are incredibly good. So I think that'll probably be what you see. But again, we have some teams like Error 44 and Sex Ed that are new teams. So I do agree that we put Sexual Ed third, only because the Error 44 has the limitation with the Doom 1 trick. Obviously, being in Tier 4, this player is probably amazing, but just having yourself limited to that and taking up roster space for a single role that you're playing or a single hero, that's a limitation in itself. So unless there is just this incredible gap between this player's play, especially in Tier 4, I think it will end up being a hindrance.
And then let's go Polos Hermanos at 5 because I like their name.
Sounds good. Yes, go for it.
Let's do that. Okay. Next is EU Tier 2. And you can start us off, Avid.
Yeah, so I'm probably gonna give this one. I think this league has a lot of interpretation. We don't know a lot about it. There are a lot of new teams. So I think most of our power rankings that are going to occur here are totally up for discussion. But from what we do have, I will likely be putting Apricot Assassins at first because they're established. I am very, very intrigued with the play style of letting the other team make mistakes and then essentially just focusing on counterplay. I think that's a style that can be extremely successful in Tier 2 and Tier 1. So I am extremely curious to see how that plays out, and I think that gives them a huge advantage. Second, I'm probably going to put Galactic Raptors for the idea that they do have this established composition, right? Like this weird Ryan, Zarya, Ana. But like we said earlier, like these tiers are a tier of comfort picks, right? So if you have a freak Ryan, Zarya, and Ana player that are able to force this sort of composition on whatever map, then I imagine they're going to find some success. Third, I'm going to put Lighthouse Conquerors. because I have seen some of their roster. They have some very, very solid coaching. They have really good DPS players. They have a great tank player that's a good IGL. Even though they are new, I think they have the boundary set by the mechanical skill brought on their roster to find a lot of success. And then probably Infernal Titans, and then 20% interest is what I'm going to give fourth and fifth. Infernal Titans, only because if I remember correctly, I've had some discussion with the team members there, and I do have a good amount of confidence in their success. And then 20% interest, because a similar deal. I don't know a lot of specifics about them, but I do know that this team brings a lot of potential.
So what was it again?
I'm going to give first to Apricot Assassins.
Okay.
Second to Galactic Raptors.
Okay.
Third, we have Lighthouse Conquerors. Fourth, Infernal Titans. And then 20% interest at fifth.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too. I'm still very intrigued with the coach of Galactic Raptors. If it's the person I think they are, my goodness, this team could be incredible.
Joe Mac.
Yeah, if it is Joe Mac, he's just incredible. He's an incredible player, and if it is Joe Mac who's coaching them, that is a very great person to have in your corner.
Certainly. If that is the case, then I would probably put them at first.
Yeah.
Moving on, we have EU Tier 3. This one is a little bit interesting. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 teams here. First, I'm probably going to be giving it to Infernal Dragons here. They were a team that competed last season. I know Duffy Boy is a great player within its own. Sky Commander also being an important member on that roster gives them a huge advantage. And that the fact that they have dive at their disposal, especially at these lower tiers, will be very, very valuable. Especially if other teams, again, aren't going to be able to run it against them as a counter dive, or be able to understand how to take it since they can't run it well themselves. I think having that at their arsenal gives them a huge advantage. Second, Illusion Dynamic, I'm going to go with. Thunder God and Leo, I think the competition that they have is going to be extremely good and very similar to our Apricot Assassins EU Tier 2 team we talked about. They're also a team that depends a lot on their adaptability, and that is an extremely valuable asset within its own.
Yeah. And then we have just those other two teams that we don't have information about.
I would give Renegades third. They have talented players on their roster. Even though they are new, and Geo is more of a solidified organization and team, the only reason I give that is because Geo has had problems in the past with people leaving their roster. Their community can get a little bit bad. At least Lighthouse Renegades does have like a very strong foundation to go off of because they are a larger organization with some very good experience, and maybe, I help them out with coaching sometimes too, so maybe patting myself on the back, but but yeah, I would probably put Renegades third, and I would put Geo in fourth.
I don't have any qualms with that either. I that's a good. I don't really know much about these teams because they're basically new, so I don't.
And I think HMX just put in chat that Geo may actually be like completely done. Because they've split up because of some ties within their org. So we may be seeing that in the future.
So we'll keep them at fourth then. Cool.
Well,
so
the next exciting thing, we get to look at this week's matchups.
I've been working on the little graphic for the thing. I don't have the logo, which is. That's impressive.
Sad.
That's impressive that I don't have the logo for Firewall somewhere.
Impressive.
I found it.
Right?
I found it. It's not the same color that of the aesthetic we're using, but that's that. Cool.
Production manager, by the way.
No.
Save. There's that. Let me add our things, our voices to the new scene that I just created, and then we'll show it on image, new image, create. There
Walking
we
us through the
go.
process.
There we go. It's now there. That's our really scuffed power ranking graphic that we have. So I'm gonna go over it again for people that didn't listen. Velocity Titanium #1 for tier 1. Illusion Ion Melodies for tier 2nd, and then Phantom Troop on 3rd. Tier 2 NA, Velocity Carbon, Lighthouse Gaming, SS Hydras, Horror Core, and Illusion Revolution. Then tier 3, Renegades, Fury, Velocity Carbon, I believe is what their name is. I didn't finish their name. Oops. This is done in...
That should be right.
Yeah, Velocity Carbon, Ignition Ruby, and Ignition Blaze. And tier 4, Deep Dive, Velocity Hydra, Sexual Ed, Error 404, and Polos Hermanos. Then EU tier 2, Apricot Assassins, Galactic Raptors, Lighthouse Conquerors, Infernal Titans, 20% interest. And then EU tier 3, Infernal Dragons, Illusion Dynamic, Lighthouse, Renegades, and then Geo. So that's that.
Awesome. Yeah. So now moving on, very last segment that we got here today is we got to go over these week's matchups. I will say a little bit of a shameless plug. Be looking out for some of these games being casted. Captains, please fill out time slots so we can cast your games. Be a huge help to us. We want to promote y'all as much as we can. First, it looks like we have some tier 2 games. First game, Relentless tier 2 versus Purgatory Apollyon. I don't know a lot about these teams personally.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Purgatory. So let's go with a Relentless win.
Yeah, I'd probably go for Relentless too, because if they are part of the Relentless organization, the only thing we really got to go off of is that they have a decent foundation to work off of. I believe this is Purgatory's first tournament as well, so a Relentless team with a little bit of backing to them should give them an advantage. Next, we have Forgotten City versus Breakout. Breakout I know a little bit about, that they are like a fairly aggressive brawl team, which is pretty common from what we've seen in Tier 2. But I do not know much about Forgotten City.
I don't either. So let's go Breakout, winning that game. Then we get into Lighthouse Gaming Defenders versus Sway Gaming, and I'm going to give that to Lighthouse Gaming. We've already discussed it. They're in our top 2 for NA Tier 2. It's hard to not pick them unless they give us a reason to not pick them. Any problems with that decision? Thought? No? Cool.
Agreed.
Horrorcore Gaming versus Purgatory Cerberus. Another team in our top 5 in Horrorcore Gaming. So I think we'd have to go with that team with Horrorcore Gaming. Now, I think this is going to be the game of the week, guys, for Tier 2.
Yeah.
Velocity Carbon X versus SS Hydras. Both teams in their top 5 power rankings. Thoughts on this game? Who's going to win? Do we want to give map and maybe map scores?
I think with this one, it may actually be like a 3-1 win for Hydras. It's a little bit of a hot take since I was hyping up Carbon X a ton about their own mechanical skill, but the only reason I give that is I made a statement earlier saying that these teams that are really unpredictable and aggressive usually perform well against like these seasoned teams of mechanical players. So I think the incredible passion from SS Hydras will be able to outperform some of the mechanical differences that we see between them of Velocity Carbon. Velocity Carbon has not found a set strategy or how to work together in an extremely solid way. They're just a very mechanical team as of now. SS Hydras has experience playing around each other, so I think they got it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with SS Hydras at 3-1 as well. J Platt, thoughts?
I say Carbon wins 3-2.
Alrighty. So he does have to change. It's good. It's good to have a different
of course
opinion.
I have to change it up. It's no fun if everybody agrees with each other.
Exactly.
Let's be
I
honest
think that's
here.
very,
And
it's
then
very much a possibility.
And then you look like the big brain guy on the desk. It's perfect.
Brain. Afro.
J Brain. Apricot Assassins versus Infernal Titans. Apricot Assassins gonna be a good one as well, but I'm gonna go with Apricot Assassins. Any
I agree with that one as well. I think it will be a close game, but I do think Apricot Assassins will win.
Royalty, that's a funny name, versus 20% interest. I'll go with 20% interest since we have them in our top 5 or top 4, whatever it is. And then Lighthouse Gaming Conquerors versus Galactic Raptors. Now, we don't really know much about Galactic Raptors besides we have them second and then Lighthouse Gaming third. But if, like we keep saying, if it's Joe Mac, Galactic Raptors out of the way.
I give Raptors this as well.
J-Brain?
Yeah, let's go with it.
Alrighty. Okay, week 1, tier 3. Now okay. Illusion Dynamics versus Geo. We've already had people saying that Geo might not even be a team anymore, so we've got to give it Illusion Dynamics. Definitely, you're gonna win the game. All right. Then Renegades versus Lion Strike. I think we're all consensus that Renegades are probably gonna win this 3-0.
Sweeping.
And then we've got the 2 Ignition teams versus each other, which is gonna be really interesting.
That's interesting.
I might have to cast that myself. But I'm gonna go with Ignition Ruby solely based on the fact they do. I believe they have the better record currently in the CGL.
I think that's going to be a close game, though.
It's definitely going to be a close game.
I think that's going to be a really close game.
Yeah, that would be a very, very fun game to tune into. Munching. A slot. Let me cast your game.
Exactly.
That's game of the week. That's game of the week for sure.
It's just so fun. It's just ridiculous that they're both playing each other week 1.
So what? 2 games of the week. What we got? Ignition Ruby versus Ignition Blaze is definitely one of them, and then we got SS Hydras and Velocity Carbon X.
Yeah. And then we have Fury Tier 3 versus the Pack with question marks about the Pack. We don't really know what the roster is going to look like, and he's sitting right here. We're gonna say Fury wins it 3-1.
3-0.
3-1.
3-0. 3-0.
Because Jay Platt's playing.
I will give you the 3-0.
But you can't give him the 3-0. Jay Platt's playing.
Sure. I just really hope the Pack is a Ryan Zarya team. Am I right, J-Matt?
Ryan Zarya? I'm sorry, but I play the Brawl Sigma better than they play Brawl with any other tank in the game. Unlucky.
Unlucky indeed.
Unlucky. You got brawled on by a Sigma. Nice.
Then we have our Tier 4 Week 1 games. Arrow 404 Phoenix versus Sexual Ed. Well, it's gonna be. I think this could also be a close game, but it's EU, so we probably won't get it live.
Sexual Ed wins 3-0 because of team name and team name alone.
Yes, I will have to agree with you there. I'm gonna just go with Sexual Ed as my winner of the match. I don't know what. Obviously, I think that might be another good game. We don't know anything about these teams really. So it could be another game to watch. If it ends up getting casted, but I did say it is EU, so it might not. Unfortunately, feels EU, man.
Wait, we got some EU casters.
We've
opened up time slots to some EU teams.
We've got Monk. Woo, Monk.
Nice.
Then we have Valhalla versus Polos Hermanos. 2 teams we know absolutely nothing about.
Oh wow.
Just based on name, I'm gonna go Polos Hermanos. Thoughts?
Sure, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, based it on the name, slap a 3-0 on there and call it good.
Yeah, 3-0 Valhalla. I know what y'all are talking about.
And then you gotta have confidence, Avid. Confidence in what you say is always important, even if you're wrong. Then some people will believe you.
Confidence in the no-name roster.
So I think the Velocity Hydro X and Wasted Effort game may either Deep Dive might be playing that Velocity Hydro, or it will not be happening at all.
Oh,
So if it doesn't happen at all, tough. But if Deep Dive and Velocity Hydro play,
Ooh, that's gonna be really good.
Immediate,
Yeah.
Another game of the week to watch.
Yeah, that'll definitely
yeah.
have to be. If it's Deep Dive, I'm gonna have to go with Deep Dive just because of the name recognition alone.
Deep dive wins that 3-1
Yeah,
easily.
I,
Easily.
I would probably give it to.
yeah,
Hydro
definitely.
would have to really make a statement against that team.
They
All,
got Travis on the BAP, so
yeah, I mean, water on the map's just incredible already. So that does it for
Hey, whoa, 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 whoa,
Oh.
whoa, Joker, you better be careful because Water earlier said that if you like
Oh,
hyped him
true.
up too much, you may have to marry him.
Oh,
So
true.
I
I
don't know if you're
did
willing to
say
commit
that.
to something.
I'm not.
No.
I'm not currently looking to commit to anything. I'm sorry, Water. Okay. Before we end, we have some info to spiel about. Oh, what's going on? I pressed that. Before we end, we have some things to spiel about. To start, we already talked about it a little bit. Merch store. Make sure to check it out. There's really good stuff on it. When it comes in, I'll definitely give a review on the Fireside chat about it.
Absolutely.
Make sure to check out the Matcherino links for the prize pools. It's been going on throughout the entire stream on the in the chat. So if it'll be there eventually. Please let us know what you thought about the show, either in the Discord, which you can find below the Twitch stream in the info section, or on the Twitter. And then look for cast next weekend when these games happen. I just remembered I have something to do. I have the Will English Invitational next weekend, so that's unfortunate for me. But everyone else in the Firewall stream team will be looking to get a lot of those games casted for you. And that's really about it. Do we have anything else we need to say, Avid? Because you're the big production manager guy.
No, absolutely. Be looking for those casts next week. I'm hoping to pick up a few games myself and bring some excitement to y'all. Thank you for tuning into our first episode of Fireside. I am incredibly blessed to be working with Joker's Ransom and with our guest, JVAT. Enjoyed them being on the show, and we'll definitely be seeing more. But please, please, please let us know. Comment on the Twitch, DM me on Discord, tag me, talk about us in general, get on Twitter. We want to hear from y'all on how we can improve this or things that you want to hear get talked about Firewalls League. So please, please, please do not be afraid to reach out. But other than that, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Joker, for producing and being my co-host with me today. And thank you, J-Brain, Laz, for coming on the show and being our special guest.
thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Well, that about does it. Thank you all for watching. Peace out.
Peace out, guys. Fury on top.
And good night.